Hello and good afternoon, everybody. I think we have still got a couple of people who are still trying to log on, so I will just give you a little bit of background information whilst we let everybody sort of join us today. So first of all, a very big thank you very much for joining me today for my second webinar. In today's webinar, I will be having a look at the 7 steps to correctly claim your furlough so that you are not held up in waiting for that all-important money to come through, so that you can pay your employees you know, for the month that has just gone by, and also to make sure that you claim from the time that you actually started your furlough, which doesn't necessarily coincide with your payroll pay reference period. So there are a number of terms that I'll be using today, and hopefully this won't get confusing as I go along. Today is Friday the 24th of April. This is my webinar in relation to the 7 steps of correctly claiming furlough, to, as I say, make sure you keep up with getting that all-important money so that you can keep business going as normal. So just as a starting point, HR for UK, who are HR for UK, we are a leading HR provider who provides HR support to business owners. We also provide payroll and pension support, as well as health and safety services. We've got over 30 years of experience, and of course we've got some lovely 5-star reviews on our website. So I would encourage you to go and visit our website, which is www.hrforuk.com, and read some of those lovely reviews. So just by introduction, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Angela Clay, and I'm an employment law solicitor and the managing director of HR for UK, and I'm responsible for HR for UK's role in leading businesses through this furlough period and the coronavirus crisis by providing professional support, advice and guidance to businesses. So as I've already alluded to, my vision to come out of this is to make sure that your business comes out of this crisis successfully by offering you clear, professional and practical advice. And hopefully after today's webinar, you will have had some of that. I just see that my screen is wobbling around a bit, so I don't want to give anybody you know, have motion sickness of the screen sort of flopping around, so I do apologise for that. So in today's webinar, there are quite a few points that I am going to cover for you. It's just a reminder on the background on the scheme, how to furlough your staff, how to work out how much to claim, and how to correctly claim to avoid those delays. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time of having a look at a strategy on life after furlough, because we all know that this is just a temporary situation. We are going to come out of it, and the only way you are going to successfully come out of furlough is if you start planning now and thinking about what is it your business is going to look like by the time we get out of this. And hopefully, if we've got some time, we're going to have some live Q&A questions. On the right-hand side of your screen, you should have a section where there is questions or chats. If you want to pop it in there, I will do my very best to have a look at those while we are going through. But as many of you might know, I'm still trying to grapple with the technologies of today, and I will try and get to those so that we can answer some of those questions in a live format. Please do ask those questions. If you've got any concerns about your business and you want to have a one-to-one discussion, you know, please do get in contact with us. Go to our website, which is www.hrforuk.com, or drop an email into our info@hrforuk.com, or if you want to have a chat, give us a call on 01455 444 222, and somebody will be able to help and support you, or you can just ask for me. So as I say, I've already mentioned question and answers. If you can pop those into the questions or in the chat box, and I'll do my very best to try and have a look at that. There are no slides at the moment, but they will be coming to you. Please don't worry about having to make notes, because there is going to be a recording of this that will come out to you together with some presentation slides, and of course the all important questions that will come out down the right hand side. We'll collate those for you and circulate those out once you know the webinar is over. So just a very quick question, you know, how is everybody feeling? Have many of you made your first claim and feeling quite comfortable about it? Are you feeling a little bit unsure about the current climate? I'll be really interested to know, you know, how you are feeling at the moment, you know, especially in relation to COVID-19. I think we've had the lockdown, which was extended. We've had the coronavirus job retention scheme, which has been extended, but there's still a lot of certainty. But of course, you know, there may be an opportunity for you here where you are actually feeling quite positive. So I'd love for you to share with me, you know, how you are feeling, and also, of course, you know, what you feel will benefit you in the coming weeks with future webinars, particularly about what you feel would be most beneficial to you at this point in time, so that I can sort of put something together that I can help and support you. So enough of my waffling on about the basics for today, and let's get on to the meaty stuff. Let's get on to the stuff that you've really signed up for today, and let's go through those 7 steps to correctly claim your furlough claim so that it's not held up. Little secret here, there are probably a few more than 7 steps, but I will touch on those once we come to the end. So don't think I'm going to go through 1 to 7. It is going to be a whole lot more information than just the 7 steps. So just very quickly, just a reminder to the background to the coronavirus scheme. You will remember back on the 20th of March, which probably feels like a long time ago already, the government announced the coronavirus job retention scheme. This is only one measure of support to businesses during COVID-19. There are, of course, other schemes available for businesses, and I would encourage you, if you haven't taken advantage of these yet, that you do so. But of course, today I'm only going to be dealing with the coronavirus job retention scheme, and the most important bit is, of course, making that all-important claim. So under the job retention scheme, it is a grant to employers to cover 80% of wages up to a cap of £2,500 per month. The scheme is open. You are able to make your claim. First claims were made on Monday, the 20th of April, when the portal actually opened, and there was a staggering 140,000 businesses that actually lodged their claims by midnight on Monday, which I think is phenomenal, bearing in mind the issues that we can sometimes face with you know, technology. This was a benefit to over 1 million employees who received and who will receive financial support in relation to the COVID-19 job coronavirus job retention scheme to be able to support businesses. Claims can be backdated to the 1st of March. And of course, the scheme has been extended until the 30th of June. Now, any of you who joined me last week, I gave a big sort of warning to say that this is only as current as I'm saying it. During my webinar last week, of course, the government made an announcement that you know, changed what I was saying while we were talking. So if anything like that happens this week, please do bear in mind that this is a very fast-moving area, and of course, changes are taking place all the time. But as we speak at the moment, the scheme is open, and it will be open until the 30th of June 2020. So the purpose of the scheme is really to ensure that employers who cannot pay their staff wages do not make redundancies. So it is a measure to make sure that staff don't lose their job because employers can't pay them. Workers who are on reduced hours are excluded from this. So it really is about those who are furloughed, and I'll come back to that because it's really, really important that you have furloughed your staff properly. So again, the furlough scheme is tied to your PAYE scheme, which applies to employees who were on your PAYE scheme on or before the 19th of March. Now that's a key date, and it's quite important that an RTI return had been submitted to HMRC on or before the 19th of March. If anybody wasn't on an RTI on or before the 19th of March, unfortunately, they will not be eligible to benefit from the scheme. So again, that is quite an important date. The coronavirus job retention scheme is purely a mechanism between business owners, companies, and HMRC to be able to make that claim. That's all it is. It doesn't alter the employment relationship, and it doesn't alter the existing employment law. So again, existing employment law still applies, and employers should not fall foul of doing that. As I've already said, this is a very fast-moving area, so please do stay abreast of any changes that may come about. Of course, we are constantly updating our webinar, our website, so please do go into that and make sure you are up to date with the most up-to-date information. You can subscribe to our newsletters, and that will ensure that you are kept up to date. So let's just have a quick reminder as to who is an eligible employer. So the guidance that came out, and certainly the direction which has now been issued in relation to the job retention scheme is open to all UK organisations who have set up a PAYE payroll and submitted an RTI return to HMRC on or before the 19th of March. So this includes businesses, charities, recruitment agencies, and public authorities. So again, it's open to all UK organisations who have got that PAYE in place. So just a little bit of general information about the scheme. So it's really important that you do have all your ducks in a row when you are applying for your refund through the grant. HMRC has clarified that there is a requirement that employers must agree to stop work while they are on furlough. The stopping work is in relation to your organisation. It doesn't mean that they can't work at all. They can go and find new work with a new employer, which means they will get 100% of their salary there. And it also means that they can go and do volunteering work. But there is very clear guidance that they must not carry out any work which is going to generate an income or provide a service for your organisation. And this must be in writing. Of course, HMRC is not going to deny the employer the ability to reclaim if he hasn't got a response from the employee to confirm that agreement, as long as you as an employer has written to your employee to notify them that they must not carry out any work. That will be sufficient. So again, the requirement of the written notification, this is also to confirm that they are actually being redesignated as a furloughed employee. So there's two things that really strike me as very important in the written notification, is confirming that they do not carry out any work and that their employment status has been redesignated to that as a furloughed worker. The employers must keep a record of that notification for a period of 5 years. And this is a clear indication that HMRC is going to come back and going to carry out an audit. While you're obviously putting your claim through, there are already measures in place on the system to identify any potential fraud, and claims will be kicked out if the software identifies anything that is perhaps not quite right. But again, there is going to be a retrospective audit of the claims that have been submitted. So it's really important to keep that notification in writing for 5 years. When you do actually lodge your claim, it will actually ask you to confirm that you have done this. So It's not too late. If you haven't done it, do go and do it now. You can do the written notification retrospectively, and if you want the correct template letter and the correct agreement, please go back to our website. The documentation is there. If you go into our COVID employer section, it's the top 2 documents. So, you know, there's no excuse really, because it's all there for you. But again, I can't stress enough the importance of having that written notification addressing not only those 2 points, but of course a number of other issues as well. Furlough, to furlough an employee must be for a minimum of 3 weeks. You can have the employee furloughed for 1 block. You can put employees on rotation, so it is perhaps fair for everybody in the business to have a period of furlough. The key thing is to make sure that that furlough period is for a minimum of 3 weeks. Making claims, you may have multiple PAYE schemes for your organisations. For each PAYE scheme, you must make a separate claim. So don't try and put it all into one. It is relevant to each individual PAYE scheme. That's the only way HMRC will be able to tie it up together, your organisation, to the claim. You can only claim for employees who are on your payroll, on your PAYE scheme, on or before the 19th of March. And of course, the most important thing is you must have a UK bank account, because there has to be some mechanism that the HMRC can refund that money to you, and it will only be refunded to a UK bank account. So let's have a quick look at how much to claim. So the guidance has been very clear. It will depend on, so I'll just rewind. The claim is 80% of normal regular wages, up to £2,500 a month, and employers can also claim employers' national insurance contributions and also the employers' auto-enrolment contributions. So again, it is a full grant, so do make sure that you do include that part of the claim. I don't think you'll forget, because there are steps that you will need to follow on that. So regular wages are what we would consider contractual wages. So if you are contractually obliged to pay commission, bonuses, or other payments, that will be deemed to be contractual, which will be your regular wages. If it is the term that is used is non-discretionary, which is contractual, so you don't have the discretion to making that decision whether you can or can't pay it. If it's non-discretionary, it will fall under the category of regular wages and must be included. Discretionary payments are specifically excluded, and they do not form part of normal wages. And this is simply because it is down to you as an employer to decide whether you are or aren't going to pay it. So again, it's quite important to be able to distinguish between what is discretionary and what is not. So making your claim through the portal, it is really easy, it's simple, but there's lots of steps that you need to do before then. And planning is an essential part of that. Get all the essential information, make sure you plan, make sure you've got all the information that you're going to have, so that when you actually log on to the claim, to lodge your claim, you've got everything to hand. Because of course the system will allow you in, but you have got, if there is a period of inactivity of half an hour, it will throw you out. There is no save option, there is no return to the information option. It is a one-time opportunity. Once you get in, you need to provide all the information. There isn't time to go and look for something that you may not have. So I'm going to cover everything that you are going to need as part of gathering that essential information. So to make your claim, you are going to need to be registered for your PAYE online. You will need your bank account details and sort code, so that account number and sort code. You will need your PAYE reference scheme number. You will also need the number of employees that are going to be furloughed. You will also need the details of those employees that you have furloughed. So for example, you will need their full name and you will also need their national insurance number. You will need to have a breakdown of the start date and the end date of the furlough. The end date will be in relation to the claim period. So if, for example, you have got someone who is only on a 3-week furlough period, the end date will be at the end of the 3-week period. Of course, if your employee is on, I want to say indefinite furlough, but certainly on furlough until the 30th of June, you will have that pay period, the furlough period, you would need to have that claim period because that is different to your payroll period. And I'll try and clarify that a little bit in a moment. You must also have the amount that you are claiming for your individual employee, and you must also have the amount that you are claiming in respect of your employer's national insurance contributions, as well as the amount you are going to be claiming in terms of your auto enrollment contributions. You must have a contact telephone number where they can get hold of you, and obviously your contact name. You will also need to have your corporation tax number. So this is your unique tax reference number or your company registration number. And of course, something that I will touch on a little bit later, which is a little bit of an anomaly, of course, you need to have your company postcode. So that's some of the essential information that you are going to need before you can make your claim. So again, make sure you've got all that information to hand. Some of it is quite straightforward. Some of it is a little bit more complex, and I will touch on those as we go forward. So we were talking about the claim itself. So you'll be able to claim the 80% of normal wages up to a cap of £2,500 per month. And you will also be able to claim national insurance contributions that you as an employer would make and auto enrollment contributions. Now, what you are going to be claiming for each employee will depend on how they are paid. If they are paid a salary, you will use their regular payment that you paid them on the 28th of February 2020. So that's quite straightforward. You're going to look back. What did you pay them on the 28th of February? And that is the figure that you are going to use to make your claim. If, however, you are going to be, your workforce does variable hours, which means that their pay differs from month to month or from pay period to pay period, what you are going to need to do, you are going to need to carry out 2 steps. The first step is you are going to look at the average earnings that they have had over the last 52 weeks, and you are going to compare that against the same pay reference period as last year. So for example, you're going to have a look at, if you're making your claim in April, you're going to have a look at their pay reference period in April 2019, and whichever is the greatest is the figure that you are going to use for your claim. Do bear in mind that when you are doing a calculation, you are not going to take into account any increases that may have arisen as a result of perhaps the 1st of April salary review. You are going to use those figures that I have already touched on. So just as a quick reminder, for somebody who is salaried, it is their pay as it was on the 28th of February. For those workers who have variable pay, you're going to take the higher amount of either the average over the last 52 weeks or the same pay reference period this time last year, so 2019. And that is the figure that you are going to be using. So there is and your calculation is going to be 80% of that. So let's just have a look at the other requirements that you are going to need. So the scheme requires you to enter in a national insurance number. If you've got 100 or more employees, you will be able to upload this in an agreed format. and again, I'll touch on what those formats are. It'll probably come out in the slides when I come out, because I don't appear to have them here on my notes at the moment, but I will make sure that those go out. So if you are uploading 100 or more employees, you know what file format you need to be using, but CSV is definitely one of those. But again, if you don't have a national insurance number, the system will not necessarily reject your claim, but it will give rise to questions, because the national insurance number is what is going to tie the claim to your PAYE to ensure that there are no fraud measures that are put in place. If an employee has less than 100 furloughed employees, of course this is a manual job, but if you do not have a national insurance number for one of those individuals, you should contact the COVID-19 helpline, which is 0800 024 1222. And again, this information will come out to you at the end of it, so that they will be able to process the claim over the telephone. But if you can get the national insurance number, that will be the best way to do it. So it's really important to have the national insurance number. Again, the grant is only paid back into a UK bank account. So again, if you haven't got a UK bank account, it is all likely that this will prevent the claim being paid out. Employers without their own UK bank account will not be able to make claims. There are certain exceptions if you're using an agent or using BACS payments, but you should double check that before you try and make the claim. The guidance is really clear that there must be a UK bank account. Again, the requirement for your unique tax return number or a company registration number, this is the way that HMRC will be able to double check that you are a genuine employer making your claim. Again, if you don't have this information to hand, there is a little workaround about it, where there will be other identifiers. So for example, it will ask questions, does the employer submit a tax return? Is the employer registered for self-assessment? Is the employer registered at Companies House? These are an example of the type of questions that may be asked as a workaround if you do not have your unique tax reference number to hand. So again, if you don't have this information to hand, you won't be prevented from making your claim, but there will be other measures in place to ensure that it is a genuine claim that is being made. Again, the government has announced that it will look after companies that have 2P'd employees over. So again, the grant will cover staff who are caught on a 2P transfer situation, and it will be the PAYE succession rules after the 19th of March which will apply. So again, there will be specific information that you may need to have if that will be applying to you. So, but I think that will apply to very few employers, but if it is going to apply to you, just do bear in mind that you may need to provide additional information on the outgoing PAYE scheme to ensure that that information is transferred over. It is unclear on how the grant interacts with the employment allowance. You may remember that an employment allowance is a support mechanism that employers can claim back. And the simple response to that is keep your employment allowance and claim it at a later stage. Because if you are going to try and claim your employer allowance at the same time as you are trying to claim the employer national insurance contributions and the employer auto-enrollment contributions, there may well be a conflict and the one might negate the other. So rather than trying to make both claims at the same time, keep your employer allowance claim and claim that later in the year. And it avoids having to make adjustments through the grant. Holidays and bank holidays, again, has been a tricky area. So again, when you are looking at calculating how much pay you need to pay your employee, the guidance is still silent on how holiday pay and bank holidays is going to be calculated. But of course, when you are adopting an employment law approach, employers will need to top up to 100% of wages for any holiday days taken during a period of furlough. But of course, you can still claim the 80%. So the cost to the business in relation to holiday pay will only be limited down to the 20%. And again, it's just making sure that that calculation is kept separate, so that when and if HMRC come and do an audit, you will be able to differentiate between what was paid, what was claimed, and what the employee was legally entitled to claim. So furlough periods, we've talked about the minimum 3-week period. Of course, furlough periods can be extended much longer than that. Of course, if an employee is recalled to come back into the business to carry out some work, that will be a break in furlough. So you can put them back onto furlough after there has been a break. If there has been a break in furlough leave, you must then have a further continuous period of 3 weeks to ensure that you will then once again have the benefit of being able to make that claim. There is no minimum period required to break that. It could be as little as 1 day. So again, an employee can be on furlough for the 3 weeks, come back in, do a day's work, and then be furloughed again. That second period of furlough must be for a further period of 3 weeks. So the clock is only reset if there is a continued period. It is only reset if the employee returns into work. So another query that has come up over the course of the last few days is, how does the scheme interact with annual payroll periods? This is an unusual payroll period, but it does exist. If you are trying to make a claim for an annual payroll period, the system will reject it. Claims must relate to an employee where an employer has made a payment of earnings in the tax period 2019-2020, which was made before the 19th of March 2020. So if you are looking at doing that, you know, if you are running an annual payroll, it is unlikely that it will accept the claim. Because of course that all-important RTI on the 19th of March is what is going to be important here. So you might have made a claim and after reading up, perhaps coming onto this webinar, you might find out that actually maybe you've made a mistake when you have lodged your claim. There isn't a mechanism in place to be able to make any amendments. So again, it is really, really important to make sure that you have all the information to hand. You have checked, double checked, and perhaps even triple checked to make sure that the amount that you are claiming is correct. Because of course the risks to getting it wrong is HMRC may come back to you and request a refund. Sorry, they may reclaim any grants that they have made which are being overpaid. Similarly, if you are underpaying an employee, it may give rise to an unlawful deduction of wages. So again, it's really important to make sure that you get that calculation right. And the best place is to make sure that you have the calculations and you make sure that you keep a record of those calculations. So if anybody does ask, you will be able to give a full and proper explanation as to how you got to that amount. So just again, in terms of working out your claim, the claim for the purposes of the scheme is calculated on calendar days. It is not calculated on working days as you would normally do for payroll. This is one of those anomalies, a little bit like holiday pay, where there is a slightly different calculation. So if you have made your claim based on working days, this will be wrong, and you will need to, when you do your next claim, you will need to make sure that you all future claims are made on calendar days and not working days. So again, just a quick question on the definition of a claim period. You've heard me talk about pay reference periods. You've heard me talk about pay dates, and you've also now heard me talk about claim periods. All of those refer to different things, and it is so easy to get confused, particularly when you are trying to reconcile your payroll to match up with a claim period. They will not match up because they will, especially for the first claim, will not match up. So the important thing is to run your payroll in accordance with your pay period. When you are running your claim, to make sure that that claim is in relation to the claim period. And of course, the all-important pay date is the date that you are required to pay your staff for their wages. So a claim period is whatever the employer wants it to be. You can make it a week, a month, etc. It will all depend on what suits you. But what you must ensure is that you can only make one claim per month. So if you have made a claim for a claim period in April, you will not be able to make another claim until we go into May. Thankfully, that's only a week away. But it's certainly for once you've made your May claim, you cannot make another claim until June. So one claim per month, but the claim period can be for any period. Employers who want to make multiple claims, do remember that it has to be specific to per PAYE scheme. You can make multiple PAYE schemes at different times. Multiple PAYE claims at different times. They don't need to be at the same time. So again, as I've already mentioned, when to make that claim, I would certainly advise you to make sure that you have all the information that you need. There is no rush. The scheme is not going to run out of money. There is no fear that if you are going to be claimant number 572,600 as an example, thinking, well, am I going to get to that point and the government is going to say, sorry, Mr. Employer, you're too late in making your claim, we're not going to pay you. That is certainly not the case. So take your time in making sure you've got the correct information. Take your time in putting that claim in and making sure that you get it right. But of course, I'm absolutely understanding that time is of the essence. You do want to get those claims in because it's so important to get that funds back in, because sometimes and perhaps in a lot of situations, it's going to be a race against the clock as to when is your payroll money going to be going out of your bank account to pay your staff on their pay date and the claim coming in. The good news is, of course, is once you have successfully made your claim, you will receive the funds back into your bank account within 6 working days. So again, a little bit of planning, a little bit of preparation, making sure that you're making your claim at the right time to make sure that the money hits your bank account in good time, so that you can have that comfort in knowing that you have the financial means to be able to actually make your payment to your staff on their payday. So again, making when to make that claim takes a little bit of planning, and I would certainly make sure certainly advise that that is what you do. You can also make claims, future claims. So if you are imminently going to be running a payroll, again, I appreciated the period of the the date in the month, with 24th of April, most people have already run their April payroll, but again, for future planning to get it right for May and June, you can have your claim run either before or just after your payroll. And again, you can also make claims in advance, so claims cannot end more than 14 days ahead of the claim date. So again, just bear those dates in mind when you are preparing your claim. I've already touched on employers who have more than 100 employees, but of course, what about those who have less than 100 employees? You will need to do it as a manual exercise in inputting that information. But of course, if you've got 100 or more employees, you can upload that data into the system. I've already talked about sorry, I'm getting a frog in my throat. I think that's a clear sign of too much talking. So I will whistle along so as we can get to those all-important Q&As. But again, just an important one to make sure that you use calendar days when making your claim and not working days. This has been, there was a lot of discrepancy early on as to whether it was going to be calendar days or working days, but HMRC have now actually come out and confirmed that it is in fact calendar days that must be used. And I know for those of you who are running payroll, it sits inconsistent to how you run payroll, but do remember that this is a different scheme to running payroll, and the scheme rules must be applied, so therefore it is calendar days that you must do. And just a nuance, sorry, I'm going to have a drink of water, so I apologise. Let's get rid of that frog. As I say, it's a clear sign of too much talking. So again, on the portal, we've had lots of feedback as when you go on and you put in your bank account details, the next question it asks is for a postcode. A lot of people have been putting in their bank's postcode, but of course that's not what they're asking. They are asking for the company's postcode. Apologies there, I just had to go off air for a minute just to try and really get rid of this little frog that's sitting tickling me in my throat. So again, just trying to bring this all back together, making the claim, make sure you've got your government ID and password, because of course, where do you go to make this claim? You will need that information to get access to it. And you must of course have your active PAYE enrolment and information to hand. Take your time when you're going to be doing it. It's not something that you want to rush, because you can't be interrupted because of that inactivity logout. There isn't a save function, and there certainly isn't a return function. So again, make sure that you put aside the time to be able to make the claim so that you don't get that interruption. So again, just to touch on everything in planning, make sure that you have all the essential information available to you. Confirm the number of employees that you are have furloughed. Confirm that how much you are actually going to be claiming. That claim is going to be split into 3 elements. So again, it's going to be how much you are claiming in terms of employee wages, how much you are claiming that is in relation to employer national insurance contributions, and how much you are going to be claiming in terms of employer auto-enrollment claim. Once you've put all the information in, before you push that final send submit button, check the details. Make sure that the information you have inputted into the portal is correct. It's quite easy to transpose numbers, transpose letters, check the employee information, check the employee national insurance number to make sure that they are correct. Because of course you can't change it once it has been submitted. Check the company name details is correct, and all important, make sure that the bank account details are correct, because again, once you've submitted it, you cannot make that change, and you don't want to go through all that hard work to have the claim rejected. Once you have checked it and you have submitted your claim, you will get a confirmation that will pop up onto your screen to say that, you know, confirming that your claim has been submitted, and there will be a reference number. Quick tip, print off that page or make a written note of that reference number, because you will not receive an email confirmation of that reference number. Once you exit out of it, that reference number will disappear and you will have no way of having any reference. So print it off or make a written notification to make sure that you've got a record of that. So that is really, you know, how to make a claim, planning, making sure that you've got all your information together in one hand. Make sure that you take the time to gather all that information, because it will be well worth it because once you get onto the system and you start putting in your claim, you'll have everything to hand. By then, you will be able to sigh a sigh of relief, and you can then start focusing on your strategy to life after furlough. Because, of course, once you've made your first claim, you will feel quite comfortable and quite confident in being able to make your second claim and your third claim, to make sure that you utilize the scheme before the end of June of this year. So let's just have a look at, let's put the claim to one side. We know that by now, or certainly by the time you've made your claim, you would have correctly furloughed your team, you would have correctly made your claim, but you might want to start taking the next few weeks just to start thinking about what is your business strategy going to be bringing your staff back. And again, planning is really key, because if you plan ahead, you will be able to start getting the ball rolling before things start to happen. An expression that I've been using quite a bit recently is, we were waiting at a station and we got hit by the furlough freight train that came in from nowhere, and nobody knew what to do. We were all left spinning around, not really knowing what to do. Let's not have the return freight train catching us going the other way. Let's be prepared for it. Let's not get caught up in the whirlwind that will follow on it. Let's get ahead of that freight train to make sure that you are prepared and planned for the next steps. What your business is going to look like is going to be very different to what it was when you left before you furloughed your team. So to be able to help you through this coronavirus, HR for UK, we have got an amazing package together. It's called our Coronavirus Crisis Package. It is not a one-size-fits-all. It is definitely one of those situations where you will invest the time, money and energy in getting the expert support and guidance in unfurloughing your team, getting them back in, making sure that you're still complying with the underpinning employment law principles of employing staff. The package, as I say, is not a one-size-fits-all, but it provides you with up to 3 months support of the furlough scheme, post-furlough, ensuring that your business is compliant. It will be tailored to your specific business needs. As I say, businesses are going to be very different. It may be a case that you just need to unfurlough your team and it's business back as normal. You might need to do a little bit more of training. How do you do that? Do you still do that during the furlough period? Do you do it once everybody's back into the business? How can you maximize the furlough period to gear your business up for when you do come back, that you are ready, so you can hit the ground running and make your business the success that it is going to be in getting, coming through the furlough and through this crisis. Prices will vary, but you will be starting from £200 to start provide you with the basics. But as I say, prices will be flexible. They will be flexible not only in relation to the support you are going to need, but also taking into account your financial situation, because of course we know that COVID-19 has affected everyone. So do get in contact to us for more information on how we can help you and how we can support your business going forward. So that sort of wraps me up quite nicely as to today's webinar. Just a reminder that we will be having regular Friday webinars between 3 and 4 p.m. Certainly next week we'll start focusing on gearing up and preparing yourself for post-furlough. Hopefully my frog will have disappeared by then. And you won't be hearing me struggle, but I will make sure that I'll have a stern word with this frog in my throat. Just a reminder, we are here to help you. Do get in contact. Our telephone number is 01455 444 222. Our website is www.hrforuk.com, and of course that all important email address is info@hrforuk.com. So let's have a look at if there are any questions that have come in that I will be able to help. I'm just going to frown into the screen to see if I can find these questions. And unless I'm doing something, I'm either doing a really good job and I've answered all the questions, or I've done a really bad job and not opening it. Right, I do have a question here that has come in. I want to say the caller. We're not a caller. We are due to resume business on the 4th of May. We have 2 employees who work variable hours that informed us that they will not be returning as they live with elderly, vulnerable parents. And I'm just trying to extend this as I can get it open. Once we lift the furlough, is it fair to inform them that they will be put on unpaid leave? We would like them back in work at some point. That's a very good question, and thank you for putting that in. So again, the decision to furlough staff is the employer's decision. It is not the employee's decision, and it has to be addressed in a way that works for your business. So again, we are in unprecedented times when deciding whether to ask employees to either take it as unpaid leave. You could possibly ask them to take that following period as holiday if they have got accrued but not yet taken holiday. They could take it as that, but you are certainly within your right to let them know that if they don't return, that it will be unpaid leave. But before you come to that decision, try and understand what other support they have in place to make sure that you are being a reasonable employer, to make sure that you are being sympathetic and understanding. But of course, it is your decision. If there is work to be done and you have returned to work, and if there is, you know, they themselves are not vulnerable, then there is no reason why they shouldn't return to work. So thank you very much for that question. You know, I hope that answers your question that you do have. And I'm just going to have a quick look to see if there are any other questions. I can't seem to see any. If you have sent in a question and I'm a little bit of a technophobe and can't find it, please drop that into our email address, which is info@hrforuk.com, and I will make sure that I do respond to that. If there are no more questions, I think I have. Oh, we have got a question that's come in. Oh, this is really good. So, what are the risks of furloughing staff? So I'm a little bit unsure on what the question is. So the risks of furloughing staff is, of course, this is a scheme that has been put in by the government. It is there to really ensure that employees aren't unnecessarily made redundant when the scheme is in place. So for an employer's point of view, there probably isn't really much of a risk because you are complying with the scheme rules. You are putting basically ensuring that staff don't come into work. You are abiding by the requirements of the government to social distancing, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home. The scheme itself is there to be able to support businesses financially, to be able to ensure that they can pay their staff, because of course it's a legal obligation to pay your staff. By having the furlough scheme and having the agreement in place, you are agreeing to reduce their wages so that you can claim that back from the government. So I hope that answers that question. The risks, of course, and I did mention it earlier on, the risks, of course, in getting your claim wrong. There is the risk from HMRC that if you have overstated your claim, that they will come back and request that money to be paid back. Of course, if you underpay your staff in not providing them with that at least the 80% under the furlough scheme, you do run the risk of a unpaid wages claim through an employment tribunal. So it really is important to make sure you pay the correct amount. Just one last point on unpaid wages. Of course, if an employee is on a national minimum wage, or they are an apprentice. If they are furloughed, they are not actually carrying out work. So under the scheme, you can tip below the national minimum wage, and you will not be penalised for paying them less than the national minimum wage, because the key thing is that they are not working. Of course, if they do come in and do some apprenticeship learning under the apprenticeship scheme, or if they do come in and do some work for you, the national minimum wage and the national minimum apprentice wages will still apply. So again, it's quite important to make sure that you are aware of those different elements. So it's coming up to 4 o'clock. I've only been given an hour to do this, and I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking you for joining me this afternoon in my webinar. I hope the weather stays good for you as it is for me here up in sunny Hinckley, and have a good weekend. Oh, I've got another question. Oh, just before I get into a question. So please, can you clarify your comments with regards to the national employment? Sorry, please can you clarify your comments in regard to NI and employment allowance, as the government website states that the employer should subtract any allowance that is used at any used in that pay period. So just a bit of a clarification, you don't need to make your employment allowance claim during April, May or June. Traditionally, the employment allowance is claimed in April and May, depending on how long that extends for, but there is no requirement that you have to make it at this point in time. Just to ensure that it doesn't conflict, I would suggest that you would make your employment allowance claim later in the year rather than trying to do it now, so that you can take full advantage of the scheme and have the full benefit of the employer national insurance contributions. So I hope that has answered your question. So again, thank you very much everybody for joining me today. As always, do get in contact. I am going to end the session now, but if you have any further questions, please do drop it into our info@HR4UK inbox. We will collate these questions and we will circulate it as part of a package that we will send out to you next week with some slides, a recording of this webinar, and of course the Q&As. So once again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.